So we can use the edit menu to enable panel grid alignment. And this enables the grid alignment on the front panel, and we can also use the align objects as we place them. So if it is enabled, then the objects snap to the nearest grid. We can also select from the edit menu disable panel grid alignment, in which case the controls do not stick to the grid and can now be freely moved, and they move by pixels. And we can then use the visible grid to align objects manually. We can also use the shortcut key, which is Ctrl and then pound sign or hash sign, which is accessible when we press the shift key. So the shift at the moment we can see that the enable panel grid alignment option is available. If I press Ctrl shift and then press the hash sign, which is on the numeric 3 at the top of the keyboard, then the option disable panel grid alignment becomes available. If I again press Ctrl shift and the hash sign, pound sign, or the 3 numeric, then the opposite option enable panel grid alignment option becomes enabled. We can also use the alignment grid on the block diagram. So if we go to edit menu, if we are on the block diagram and we go to the edit menu and then enable diagram grid alignment, then LabVIEW shows this dialog box which states that enabling the alignment grid on block diagram will also make the grid visible. To hide the grid later, select tools, then options, and then alignment grid. So let's press the show grid, and a grid is now available on the block diagram, and the objects are now snapping to the grid. When objects are aligned and distributed evenly, we can use the straight wires to wire the objects together. This makes the block diagram easier to read. We can go to the tools menu, from there options, and from there we select front panel from the category, and then we browse down to front panel grid. Here we can set whether we want to show the front panel grid or not by turning this check mark off. Then the grid becomes disabled. Or we can enable it. We can set the default panel size in pixels. We can set the contrast with panel background. Let's turn it back off, lighten it up, and we can enable panel grid alignment from here also, as well as from the edit menu. And we can then select whether to resize new objects to grid sizes or not, and we can then set the alignment grid draw style to dots. Let me turn on the contrast so you can see it better. So dots are now visible. We can select lines, and we can select graph paper. Which will be more visible if I turn down this contrast a bit. As you can see now. So these were some of the options that we can turn on and off from the options dialog box. To align objects after we place them, we can select the objects. Let's place some more objects. And we can select align objects, pull down menu, and select the options that are available here. Or we can go to the edit menu and then select align items, which aligns the left sides of the items. To space objects evenly, we can select the objects. Let's have another object, and let's select all them so that we can evenly distribute the space between these objects. The space between first and second is less, and between second and third is more. So we can select the objects and then select distribute objects from the pull down menu and use all these 8 options. Or we can go to the edit menu and then select distribute items from the menu, and it distributes the items so that the space between them is even, though it does not allow us all the other options that are present on the toolbar. So if we had turned on the grid on the block diagram and we would like to turn it off, we can go to the tools and then options, and from the category select block diagram, scroll down to the block diagram grid, and then we can, the same options are available here, and we can then turn it off if we so desire to make it look like the default view of the VIs.